Is called Mobile Strategies. As we've been seeing over the past few months in the Mag Media 360 Brand Audience Report, most magazine publishers, mobile is the primary driver of their audience growth. According to eMarketer, by 2019, mobile ad spend will reach nearly $200 billion. That's over 70% of the total digital ad spend. It's a huge number, especially in light of how far the industry has to go, given that mobile today represents just 29% of the total digital pie. So in order for us to reach these kind of numbers, a number of things have to happen to evolve. And it begs the question of, are we prepared for the day when the majority of our audiences will be consuming content largely via mobile devices? Well, we've got two folks here with us today who are going to help shed some light on the opportunities and the challenges from an ad serving, targeting, creative, and measurement perspective in mobile. Please welcome Tom Davis, Chief Marketing Officer for Forbes, and Ryan McConville, Chief Operating Officer for Kargo.
Thank you. You can hear me? Okay, there it is. I'm Tom Davis. I'm the CMO at Forbes, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you to the MPA for allowing us here. I'm impressed. I've spent most of the day here today, and there's so many insights, so much around big data, and now when we have a programmatic print session, you know we truly live in the world of big data. So that was fantastic, and really enjoyed watching it. Rather than spend a lot of time talking about data, I'm actually going to tell you a quick story as my 5-minute opening. It's about around what Forbes has been doing over the last couple of years, and why I think we're poised to do pretty well now as our growth is coming from mobile. And mostly when you think of mobile, who's using cell phones? Who wakes up with them in the first thing in the morning? Who goes to sleep with them at night? Who checks it every time they're waiting for a commuter train or bus or, well, everybody, right? But I should have asked for a show of hands, but it's pretty much everybody. But most of the people in media think that it's millennials who are doing this, and certainly they're the first all digitally native generation. So that makes a lot of sense, and there's no doubt the way they're using their screens are probably different than the way most of us in this room might be using our screens. So when I look at Forbes and I think about how do we align the goals and the needs of our audience members, our content creators, and our advertising partners, that's my role, right? I'm on the committee that has to figure that out. But when we think about that and we take a 100-year-old traditional media brand and apply it to the way media will be consumed or continue to be consumed as we go into the future, it can be a bit of a challenge. And I think a lot of the MPA members, a lot of the traditional media publishers probably think of the challenges and not so much as around the opportunities. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about the way I see the world in a very optimistic, maybe set of goggles. So I don't know if anybody knows who this is, but this is Palmer Luckey from Oculus Rift, recent billionaire after selling his company to Facebook not too long ago. And Forbes did have a good cover story on Palmer in our Under 30, or 30 Under 30 issue back in January. And I think this whole image and this whole concept about why do we take something serious from a 22-year-old entrepreneur? Why does Forbes think it's serious other than the money that he is now worth and made by selling his company? But really it is that vision. It is that the reason he sold to Facebook is because he thought he would have massive distribution if he went that way as opposed to doing it his own. And virtual reality is certainly a tool that is going to be used far beyond gaming, which is what a lot of people think of it today. It really is going to change that industry, but it's going to change education. It's going to change travel. It's going to change pretty much every vertical we might be working in and covering. This technology is going to change. And that got me thinking, right? Like, think of all the disruption that's coming out of this millennial group, the truly digital natives. And it's a lot to cover in whatever session we're going to have here. So I'm not going to try to do all of that, but I will say, if I'm looking at a 100-year-old brand and I want to think about how to make it applicable to the future, well, you got to stay with your purpose and your mission. And we are champions of free markets and entrepreneurial capitalism. And that's what Palmer Luckey is. He's an entrepreneurial capitalist who has a great idea, a great vision, and came up with a great product that has made him wealthy, but it's really going to change mankind. And I think of that in the context of our business, and we really are in the digital foothills. And the Himalayas are just really right next to us. The amount of change that's going to happen in our space and in the world is really massive. And think about Moore's Law, right? Everybody knows about it, but it's 50 years old now. And for the first 40 years, it was a shallow growth curve. The last 10 years, it's been pretty steep, and probably for the next 30 or 40 years, it's going to be almost a straight line up to infinity. So think about what that means for speed and adoption of business. And certainly as more devices become connected to all the networks, it's not just as we approach 3 billion phones. I think we now have 3 billion phones connected in the planet, but it's all the smart devices, it's all the sensors, it's all the things that are out there that are going to make our worlds even much more intuitive and smart. All of this is feeding the business ecosystem, so why aren't we all covering it? Why aren't we all talking about it? And I think we are in general, but I think Forbes has made a pretty bold move early on to connect with the millennial audience, and this is our 4th year of our 30 under 30 list. So we're bringing information to the business world to say, if you're an incumbent and you have a lot of information and a lot of traditional ways of doing something, you better be thinking about how that's going to change in the very near future. And if you're a disruptor, somebody who's going to be changing the world of business for these incumbents, you better get that message out pretty quickly. So I'm not going to take you through all these product innovations from the last 5 years, but I will say, as Forbes has tinkered with our site, as we tinkered with our mobile environment, and even with our magazine, but all of our platforms, this is just the digital audience plot from 2011 to now, so 4 years. And it's grown from ComScore numbers from about 12.5 million unique visitors per month up to 36 million in the last session. So there's been a lot of growth. And just to put that in context, we are seeing the growth from our mobile millennial audience. If you just look at more than 16 million unique visitors who are coming exclusively through their smartphones. That's what that stat says. That's larger than many of the other competitors out there. And we're not seeing as somebody said earlier today, you're going to see desktop usage continue to erode. We're actually not seeing that. Desktop is growing also, but mobile is certainly the engine that's driving this tremendous growth. But as I look at our audience, as I look at who we're serving, advertisers, as well as the audience members, if we can continue to get a younger and richer audience, then we really are serving on that mission of being champions of entrepreneurial capitalism. So again, I was surprised today as I sat through many of the sessions, the great optimism that I did hear. Certainly there's a lot of data, there's a lot of ways that you can reach customers and engage with them in new ways, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next session. But I do think there's more reasons to be optimistic than there is to fear what's going to happen in the future. And I think in a couple of years we're going to be looking back at this particular moment in time and say this really was the golden age of journalism and the golden age of being a media company. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Thanks, Tom. He's talking about Moore's Law. I'm a fan of Ray Kurzweil. I don't know if you guys know about the singularity. People know that theory. So maybe in 3 decades we'll all be like half robot flying machines, and really this won't seem all that important. But for the time being. So Kargo is a mobile advertising company. And I'm just going to give you kind of a quick overview of how we see the world. I think it kind of goes without saying that we know that the way consumers are consuming content is changing radically. We call this the attention exodus. This is Mary Meeker's slide. It's actually 2 years old now. She just came out with a new presentation, but I didn't see that this was updated. But we're experiencing this day to day. If you crack into the Nielsen numbers, it's pretty interesting, depending on how you look at it in television, just as one example. 18 to 24-year-olds in the United States watched 9 billion fewer hours of television last year, and that includes DVR and standard linear television. We've seen, we just saw layoffs at Winter Media today. It's in the print world, and according to Google, the Google Premium Index, desktop numbers are down about 40% year over year for a lot of what we call premium publishers. So really, where you're seeing the growth is in mobile, and that is a challenge, for a lot of companies. I did black out the publisher whose numbers these are, but they're actually. It's actually fairly representative of a lot of the magazine companies that we work with, and it's sort of scary. But I'll point to some optimism in here. This particular magazine was actually launched back in 1998. In 2004, it reached its peak circulation of about 650,000 unique users. And since then, it has declined. The iPhone came out, and we see that they launched a mobile website. And what's interesting about this slide is that in December, just last year, 2014, this particular site had over 1 million unique visitors. So a decade after the popularity of their print magazine peaked, their mobile has now brought them more users. So what you see here is actually sort of a ray of hope, right? The mobile device has actually brought this particular publishing brand more users than the magazine delivery system was ever able to do. The problem is, who gets to keep that money? And that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a little bit today. There is money. 71% of all digital ad spending will be mobile. My stat says by 2018. We heard 2019. Some people predict even sooner. So there's a lot of money there. The question really becomes who gets to keep it. We see the world at Kargo. We see the world in sort of two buckets, and there might be more, but we see content creators. Those are people that publish content that people consume. I think everyone in this room would be considered a content creator. And then we see the other bucket as what we call content hosts or content distributors, or you could say even content discovery technology. Google helps you find content. Facebook helps you share content. The Apple ecosystem is a place into which you can publish content in the form of apps. The issue is that the content hosts and distributors are keeping 75% of the value that is created by the entire ecosystem. And the question is that right? So these numbers show that about 100 brands, many of which are your brands, drive about 50% of all mobile content activity. So there's 100,000 publisher sites and apps out there, and basically about 100% create 50% of the consumer content consumption value. So why aren't they keeping close to 50% of the revenues that are generated within this ecosystem? One of the reasons is this second number. You guys can go look at your own sites, but about 4% of traffic enters through the homepage in this day and age. What does that mean? It means that most people are reading your content because someone shared it with somebody else. They're reading individual article pages that were shared by one of these distributors. They did a search and found something on Google. Friends shared it on Facebook and they grabbed it. So to kind of put a new scenario and wrap it in an old metaphor, we think of Facebook as the new Walmart. So I was actually a print publisher for many years at Bauer Publishing. Before that, I was at Winner Media in the beginning of my career. And we didn't worry about Facebook then, but we did worry about Walmart. And the reason why we worried about Walmart is because they had 60% distribution of our newsstand circulation. So every year, if you sold your magazine for $5, Walmart wants $1. Then they want $1.25. Then they want $1.50. Then they want $2. And the reason that they can do that is because they control 60% of the distribution. We're seeing something similar with Facebook. And you can look at your Google Analytics, but a lot of your referrals are probably coming from Facebook. So now Facebook would like you to publish onto their platform where they allow you one ad slot. And then Apple, another distributor, piles on by basically blocking ads on the mobile web, which is where you publish. Google just came out with an announcement today that they're going to deprioritize any searches for mobile sites that run interstitial pages. I mean, these are the partners that probably at other trade shows are tapping you on the shoulder and saying, use my ad server, use AdX, publish directly to my platform. We at Kargo are a little suspicious of this, not to say that it can't work or it won't work. But we like to offer publishers a different way. So we are a pro-content creator company. We're an invitation-only marketplace that's not reliant on these different major content distributors and content technology companies like Facebook and Google. We work only with major media companies, not just print, but digital and even mobile first. Vox and Vice are counted among our clients, as are Hearst and Time Inc. and Meredith. But basically what we provide is a mobile marketplace where you can monetize your properties using high-end brand advertising, which is not relied on. You're not relying on backfill from one of the companies like a Google. We have a variety of different ad units that all sell at really, really high prices, and you can sell them in a variety of different ways. This is to give you options to sell really high-end products that reach your mobile consumers. We also like to offer an alternative to this. I don't know how true to life this is for most people, but certainly for a long time, for a lot of our publishers, this was sort of the outlook. They were selling 10% of their mobile inventory directly and then relying on AdX or Rubicon or some of these other places to do backfill. And the CPM, at least at fill, was fairly low. We hear typically 60 or 70 cents. The Kargo marketplace works like this. We give you a bunch of different ad products which your sales team can sell directly and is also available through automated guaranteed programmatic pipes. We have a Kargo marketplace that allows agencies to buy at scale across all of the publishers. And we have a premium SSP that allows DSPs to buy higher end products at a higher price than standard banners. And when you put all these things together, your yield management is much more effective. I think that that's it. So excited to chat, I think, a little bit here, but yeah, thank you for your time.
I didn't talk much about the programmatic business at Forbes, and I did talk a lot about the way we think, and I think it's without sounding too biased here, but I think it's a pretty insightful approach. And we heard a lot today about different tactics for managing the programmatic business. Our feeling is that programmatic is a channel as equal as every other sales channel at Forbes. And we put our inventory up fully transparently on open exchanges. And we do have all inventory that is not a sponsorship, that is not a custom sponsorship. We have everybody compete and bid for the inventory. And that gives us a lot of information around what is most valuable, so we're not just guessing that this is our most valuable content, we're letting the marketplace decide. And it also really does work as a great yield optimization tool, but as importantly, it works if you get the right, if the client has some insight around a user that they're bringing to this party and they're bidding and winning the bids, it's great for the user also. So I just wanted to kick it off. I know there was several conversations earlier today, but I do think that the great thing about programmatic, in addition to all the insights it gives you about the audience, is it does truly enable an entrepreneurial buying environment. So we take full advantage of that, and we have great insights. And I think for a lot of media companies, or a lot of the people that I still talk to, there is this fear about programmatic being a conflicting channel, and how it will, if we're working with a brand who's not advertising with us direct, we don't want to open them up to a programmatic bid because it would be perhaps at a lesser value to us or whatever. And I think that kind of logic really, if you still have it, you should think seriously about letting it go, because this is an abundance mentality, right? If you do open up your systems, you serve your client well, you are going to get more business in the longer term.
At Kargo, we provide a variety of high impact units. If you look at the value of any given impression, the CPM is sort of built up on a variety of different things. You have the sort of quality content, you have contextual relevance, you have audience targeting, you have creative, you have attribution models now that are all sort of giving you the more you can stack those on top of one another, the biggest CPM that you get. I think the advantage that a lot of the publishers in this room have is they have great quality content. So when you can pair that with accurate data and really high-end creatives, you can start to earn the type of CPMs that you really need to support your business. So at Kargo, I mean, we sell almost solely high-impact units.
I think there's been a lot of bias against mobile because of the size, the form factor, right? The size of the ad unit. So high impact units, even on mobile, sometimes doesn't feel like a particularly high impact unit. But we do sell a lot of high impact units, and I do think for the screen it is immersive. But the other thing is, I think it's a great platform for native advertising also. So as native advertising continues to grow and a brand is telling their story through any form factor that people will consume it, the headline, if it's pre-penned with the brand's name, like Forbes Brand Voice will be, it acts as a new advertising unit, right? So you see a headline, we serve it in stream with something that's contextually relevant. The user will then click on it, open it up, and it's like they're reading another article. So it's similar to why they came to us in the first place.
I'll just say one last thing. I mean, I think as an industry, we have a long way to go with mobile creative. One of the things that I do at agencies, even with like 20-year-olds, is I ask them who's heard of Where's the Beef? Have you guys heard of? You guys have heard. Some of us have heard. So your average agency is about 25 years old, and what's shocking is I did this at Media Kitchen. There's about 30 25-year-olds, roughly 25-year-olds, and about half of them had heard of it. And the commercial came out probably a decade or two before they were born. So there's no doubt that television creative is powerful, right, in the way that it delivers a message. So I asked the same group, what's your favorite mobile ad campaign? And this is the millennials. They're on their phone all day long, right? They sleep with the phone. I do too, but. And they couldn't think of one ad. They couldn't remember a single ad that they'd seen. Now, if 70% of all of our digital dollars are going to be spent on these small devices, we better start worrying about how the creative works. Because if you spend 70% of your money and no one can remember your ad, you're kind of in a tough spot. And I think that agencies so far have been a little bit complicit in this, right? They're taking 30-second television commercials and jamming them into a tiny screen where the average user session is 60 seconds. So you're asking consumers to spend half of the time that they're going to spend in one session watching your ad, and they don't want to do it. So now we're shocked that 40% of millennials, this is a stat that I heard in Amsterdam at a DigiDay, I don't know if it's 100% accurate, have turned on ad blockers. So another thing to think about is we've invested billions and billions of dollars in ad tech, and all the consumers are turning the ads off. So I think as an industry, we have to kind of worry about that, right? So I think we all need to, and not to say Kargo does it perfectly, but I think Kargo is definitely dedicated to trying to find mobile formats that actually work for a world that's going to be mobile first.
Yeah. Maybe just a last point on that. Also, we're starting to see creative sequencing. So agencies, you're right, and clients, I think, have been slow to pick up on this. But the tools are now ready, so you can track users if you have good first-party partners, like most of us do, where you can track a user from not only multiple screens, but you can then serve them different messaging to get them through what would be a brand or marketing funnel, right? So we're starting to see campaigns now where it might have 6 different messages, and we want to serve them in sequence for the 6 different times that user is coming back to the properties. So again, kind of exciting things that are on the verge of happening, and we're just starting to see a couple of case studies, but I think we're going to see more very soon.
I agree.
All right.